Welcome to today's news update for day 283 of the war in Ukraine. You are listening to The Account. The main flashpoints along the front today were Crimea. Both Russian and Ukrainian sources reported of Ukrainian advances north and south of the city. This morning, the General Staff reported repelled attacks at Chervono-Popivka, suggesting the settlement is at least partially under Ukrainian control. Due to that, the P66 highway running through the settlement is now considered a gray zone. Later today, reports talked about intense fighting around Sitlivka. Bakhmut, currently the bloodiest place on the front and probably the key point in the resolution of the war. This was stated by the spokesman of the Eastern Group of the Armed Forces, Serhiy Cherevati, on Channel 24. Yesterday alone, defenders counted 261 shellings from various systems. Later, it was reported that Ukrainian reinforcements have arrived in Bakhmut, including the Special Honor Guard Battalion. And now for the daily news. In its daily assessment, the Institute for the Study of War discussed how Russia would benefit from negotiations with Ukraine and Western countries, and how Russian President Vladimir Putin shows little interest. Instead, the Kremlin continues to make demands that are equal to full surrender of Ukraine and its Western allies. Despite recent statements made by Putin, Peskov, and Lavrov regarding negotiations, the Institute suggests they are likely an attempt to create a false perception among Western officials and that the Kremlin remains focused on pursuing military victory. The city of Kherson continues to suffer from heavy shelling by Russian forces. Yesterday, the city was under enemy fire 28 times. This came after it was reported that 75% of the city had electricity restored. Further shelling today damaged the electric infrastructure and caused a citywide blackout. Power engineering teams are working as fast as they can to restore power. Natalia Humenyuk, the head of the United Coordination Press Center of the Defense Forces of Southern Ukraine, said in a statement, "As much as I would like to be happy that elements of infrastructure, including critical ones, are being restored, we must remember that hybrid warfare has its characteristics and an information front. These messages irritate the enemy, and he tries to respond immediately. As soon as electricity was restored in Kherson, the Russians started hitting the relevant infrastructure facilities." Due to an expected increase in fighting, the Ukrainian authorities have begun the evacuation of citizens from the east side of the Dnipro River. Between December 3rd and December 5th, evacuation corridors will be open at the river port section. However, no other crossing points are permitted. Serhiy Nayev, Lieutenant General and the commander of the Joint Forces of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, reports about a buildup of enemy troops in Belarus. For now, the situation is under control, but Ukraine continues to monitor the enemy and is preparing for a response. According to him, it will be based on the quantity and quality of the amassed troops. Yesterday, pro-Russian propaganda tried to spread misinformation regarding an article published by the Daily Express. The article, which we also discussed yesterday, quoted an interview with Petro Kuzik, commander of the Svoboda battalion, regarding Russian losses in Bakhmut. In the interview, when asked about Russia's losses, he said, "They are colossal. They don't even count bodies. The fields, the woods in front of the positions are all littered with corpses." Propagandists removed parts of the interview so that the context of it became unclear and could be interpreted the way Russian propaganda needed. A statement made on Telegram by Luhansk Regional Military Administration head Serhiy Haidai claims partisans in the Luhansk Oblast have severely disrupted Russian railway logistics. As a result, it will be impossible to deliver military goods to Russian forward positions in a timely manner. Interruptions are expected to last for the next 14 to 20 days. According to the military intelligence of Ukraine, Russia is already using a strategic stockpile of some types of weapons, as well as missiles manufactured earlier this year, in particular in August. This suggests that some missiles are used directly from the assembly line. For the last 2 months, Russia has also imported 122mm and 152mm artillery ammunition from Belarus. And finally, I want to point out another interesting article I came across. The Washington Post published this article yesterday called "Russia and Ukraine are fighting the first full-scale drone war." It is a rather long article, but full of very interesting information on the drones used by both sides. I highly recommend checking it out. And now for the UK Ministry of Defence intelligence update. Russian forces continue to invest a large element of their overall military effort and firepower along an approximately 15-kilometer long sector of entrenched front line around the Donetsk Oblast town of Bakhmut. Russia's plan is likely to encircle the town with tactical advances to the north and south. In recent days, Russia has highly likely made small advances on the southern axis of this assault, where it is seeking to consolidate limited bridgeheads to the west of the boggy ground around the minor Bakhmutka River. Russia has prioritized Bakhmut as its main offensive effort since early August 2022. The capture of the town would have limited operational value, although it would potentially allow Russia to threaten the larger urban areas of Kramatorsk and Sloviansk. However, the campaign has been disproportionately costly relative to these possible gains. There is a realistic possibility that Bakhmut's capture has become primarily a symbolic political objective for Russia. And finally, the evening report by the General Staff of Ukraine. In the Avdiivka and Bakhmut directions, the enemy continues to lead the attack and actively uses aviation to support ground groups. The enemy leads the defense of the Kupiansk and Liman directions. The enemy continues to suffer losses. On December 2nd, as a result of a fire impact to the enemy's focus area in the city of Starobilsk, Luhansk Oblast, the enemy lost about 30 soldiers wounded and 14 killed. In the Melitopol and Vasilivsky districts of the Zaporizhia region, the occupants lost more than 270 people injured. Information regarding the deceased is being clarified. Also, in the area of the settlement of Pitgorodne of Donetsk region, an enemy plane was shot down. Information about its type is being clarified. And this wraps up today's report. Thank you for tuning in and have a great day. You were listening to The Account. Slava Ukraini.